guess this is my first video. I'm going to be talking about cars today, the passion of mine. Probably my biggest interest. Kind of running over the ones I've owned and how I got into them and whatnot, and my current one. And I brought this to start with. This is a book I got when I was younger that my parents got for me. It's probably second grade, I don't know, some time ago. That sort of encouraged that interest, I suppose. And I'm not even particularly well educated on what a lot of these are, but most of them I know, at least to an extent. It's only been in the last few years that I've gotten into how they work and whatnot. Being old enough to own a vehicle that I can modify myself has helped with that. Before that, I was just into Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Porsches, just like every other little boy. There's a NSX, I really like those. I like Hondas in general. Higher revving, naturally aspirated motors. They're fun to play with. Very simple. But that is what that is. It's probably second or third grade that I really started to get interested in cars and started paying attention to stuff on the road and paying attention to how my dad drove when we went out and about. And I used to draw a lot of cars and such when I was younger. And I had some friends that were into that stuff too. I had a buddy whose dad had a couple of Porsches, and they were older ones. They weren't anything particularly special. He had a 944, and then later on got a Super Carrera, which that was actually pretty cool. But the 944s are pretty common, but it was still cool having a friend whose dad had a Porsche. And then in my early high school years, I had a friend whose dad had a BMW 335i convertible. He was a 2007 or 8. And that was the first experience I had with something that was pretty quick, I'd say. His dad was pretty kind to us and letting us use it and whatnot. We were able to, even before we had our licenses at 16, he would come to get us and let my friend drive rather than him, which was always a good time. And it was a pretty quick car. It wasn't blindingly fast, but it was quick. And then that same friend got a 2011 Mustang later on. It was just a V6, but the V6 actually got the 3.7 that year, which was 305 horsepower, and it was quite quick. I think the 0 to 60 was in the low 5s somewhere. And he did the intake and exhaust on that, and he still has it to this day as far as I know. And then I got old enough. I had a 2001 Dodge Neon as my first car. Nothing special. It was exactly what it was intended to be. It was a first car. Nothing more, nothing less. But it treated me well. It treated me better than I treated it. Never had to make any major repairs to it. I think we bought it with 87,000 miles, and I had it to 132 and sold it to a close friend of mine. And lots of memories in that car. Got it at 16, and I had it until I was 18, I believe. Not terribly long after my 18th birthday. And I went out and got a loan and bought a 2006 Mazda Speed 6, which was my first fast car, I suppose. And I think I got much more car for the money than I had originally intended to, even though I knew I was getting a good deal when I bought it. I believe they made 274 or 276 horsepower stock, but the one I had full exhaust, Cobb access port, cold air intake, blow-off valve, short throw shifter, and a stage 2 clutch. And then I did the fuel pump while I had it, because if you know anything about those MZR engines, they like to starve themselves of fuel at high throttle on the stock fuel pump. That's something you have to replace pretty early on. It was turbocharged, direct injected, 2.3 liter 4-cylinder, and I would guess made in the neighborhood of 330 horsepower when I sold it at the crank. But I had no problem hanging with like 370Zs and stuff like that. It was a quick car. It was really loud because it was a full catless exhaust. It's almost straight piped. No mufflers. It was a very loud car. And I had that for some time. It was good in the winter. All-wheel drive, which a lot of people don't know. It was the drivetrain in that car is very similar to the Mazda Speed 3, but there's a transfer case on the back of the transmission, and it sends up to 50% of the power to the rear wheels through a Haldex type all-wheel drive system. And it was a very well set up system. I have only fond memories of that car. It was a very good car. Would highly recommend one if someone's looking for something cheap and tunery sort of to start out in that isn't an STI or an Evo like everyone else. I find that those don't suffer as much from rice tax as some of those other boosted JDM 4-cylinders do. And that motor has a lot of potential for mods. There are 1,000 plus horsepower 2.3 MZRs out there. I know of at least one that I think made 1,100, which isn't really realistic in your everyday street car, but there's plenty of them I've seen that make 500 at the wheels with internals and big turbo and various other things you have to do with a turbocharged 4-cylinder to get it to that level. I only got rid of mine because I didn't want to spend the $800 on internals and then probably $2,500 to $3,000 on a big turbo kit to make significantly more power. There wasn't a whole lot I could do without doing the internals on the engine I had, the car I had. So that brings me to the next part of this. Let me pull my phone out here. I don't have a tripod, so I built this little Lego contraption to hold my phone. I sold my Mazda this past November, and I bought a 2009 Pontiac G8 GT. And it's a little bit wet. It's been raining outside. But that's that. I bought this primarily because I wanted the ability to make more power. And this being an LS-based motor, for anyone who knows that that means a lot in the area of making more power. Currently, it's just a cold air intake. I'm planning on doing exhaust cutouts in the next couple of weeks. It's kind of dirty right now. It annoys me. Being white, it's hard to keep clean. I have to wash it all the time. But plan on doing the exhaust cutouts fairly soon. And then after that, I plan on doing the headers. Do Cook's long tube headers. Probably 1 3/8 inch headers. And then probably just get it tuned. And I'd like to get a Camaro SS rear end to help shorten up the gearing, because the gearing on these is very, very long. I need to touch up the plastidip on it. The light's off so you can't tell very well, but the wheels are fairly scraped up. And the hood could afford, these hood vents could use a little love, darkened up a little bit. And the worst is definitely the driver's side door handle. As you can see, it's the silver is showing from the original chrome bodywork. It's quite a nice car on the inside as well. It came with a nice stereo, which was nice. I don't have to touch that myself. 91,000 miles. I bought it with 86, I believe. The guy who had it before me was a Department of Defense contractor who worked in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and lived a fair distance from there in my area and had to make that commute 2 times a week. Most of the miles were from that single commute. Which is nice, that they were mostly highway miles, and that the car was treated fairly well. But I've been enjoying it quite a lot. I enjoy tinkering with things, and cars are a little expensive to tinker with, but it can be done. So I don't play with tuning it myself, just because I'm afraid I'll blow the motor out somehow, but it is what it is. I want to pop the hood, but I feel like it might be kind of loud. Maybe if I got in the car and did it then. That was still fairly loud. Sorry. Again, this is my first time doing this, so I apologize for any loud, offensive noises. It's still somewhat warm for me driving home. There, it's got an engine cover, which I don't particularly like, honestly, but the engine is kind of dirty, so I leave it on because I don't like to see it dirty. And there's the intake. I'm not exactly sure what brand this is, which has kind of annoyed me. I was told it was a K&N intake, but this doesn't look like the K&N intake for this car. It looks more like the Rotofab one, the one that I wanted originally. And I don't know if I need to buy another one or not. But otherwise, as you can see, it is in pretty good, clean condition for being 90,000 miles, which is not really surprising because these cars are known to be put together fairly well. No, that was loud. That was as well. I apologize. But yeah, that's my car story up to the current time, I suppose. I'm willing to make videos of this separately, like non-ASMR videos. I'm kind of open to requests, whatever you guys want. I totally understand the idea of wanting or liking a specific thing in ASMR videos and not having a lot of them out there, because there's not a lot of car-based stuff out there for ASMR. So if anyone has any requests, as long as it's somewhat reasonable, I would probably be willing to do most things people ask for. I like to avoid role plays just because that's not the kind of person I am. I just don't think I'd be very good at that stuff. But like if you've ever watched The French Whisperer, his videos on history and whatnot, that kind of thing I enjoy quite a lot. Politics and history, it's just social studies as a whole, and then cars, of course, as well. It's a big hobby of mine, so I hope someone out there has gotten something out of this. I hope to try and give back a little bit to the community some. And yeah, so like, comment, whatever you feel like doing, I suppose. And hopefully see you next time.